Gems. I don't know. Can you guys hear me this time?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But you know what?
So hello and welcome to this Bitcoin Magazine interview. I am Vlad and I'm sitting next to NVK. So how do you do, mister? And how's it going with the Coldcard wallet and the Open Dime and all the great products that you're releasing nowadays?
No, I definitely love money.
Hey, hey, hey! What's up? Bitcoin.
I love money. Anyway. Frickin' X. What's going on, Terrence? What the hell? I don't know. I got the same message as you were typing to me, which was the host is having connectivity issues. So who knows?
I know it happened with your spaces that you tried to open this morning, Lauren, and Terrence. I
Yeah.
well when
Yeah, that's what Terrence was sending me DMs to that effect. So
there is another
bunch of
update,
horse
so
crap.
I'm not sure if you guys have updated yet, but I did that prior to coming into the space.
No, it's an attack. 3-letter agencies are attacking us, right, G-Money? It's part of the quintuple-headed spear that they're all these attack vectors that are striking simultaneously, and it's no Shadalay.
I leave for 2 weeks, man,
And all
the
hell
whole
breaks loose.
thing goes to hell. Puncher crashes out, the cold card fiasco, the Bitcoin, like, what is going on, guys? Like, really? I gotta come here and freaking make sure you guys are on freaking task? Good lord, man. What
Puncher
a
and I are following
complete,
each other
total
again as
shit
of
show.
last night. FYI.
You and Puncher?
Yep. Say that again.
Oh.
You sounded like Asteroid right then.
Me?
Yeah. You're talking through like a tube or something.
Yeah. I got 2 weeks of vacation right now. I'm like degenerately online, which, you know, I'm glad I'm been able to because this is like such an important time. But at the
Welcome
same
to
time,
Terrence's world.
I need to go touch grass right now. But, you know.
Yeah, no, this is tough. I am empathetic, and it feels like I'm burning out just reading all this crap, and it's really hard for me who hasn't been personally impacted, but it's just hard to imagine and fathom the losses that some people are enduring right now. You know, your entire life savings, your nest egg just gone. That's a lot, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been kind of a constant stream of texts and emails and DMs and calls ever since really starting like late Thursday night. And I was doing a little bit of scrambling myself late Thursday night, like just trying to figure out, am I affected, whatever, because I definitely have used cold cards myself. You know, I've been reflecting on this. Um, I don't, I'm not one of those people who like preaches Bitcoin to everybody around me and like pushes people to buy it and pushes people to self custody if they do buy it or whatever. It's like, you know, my friends and family and whatever, they know that I'm the Bitcoin guy, so they'll come to me. And I do have some friends and family members or whatever who have bought Bitcoin, and then we've some of them have moved to self custody. And I don't think there's ever been a single time when when they've asked me like, what do I do with this, that I've sent them to cold card and said, hey, you should do a cold card, because I just knew that like it's too intimidating for somebody who's just learning this stuff, and a little too complex. And like, even though, to varying degrees throughout my journey, I've used them, um, I just knew that people, it's just like not a good way to introduce somebody to self custody. So luckily, looking back, like, I have not had to make any phone calls to, close friends and family and say, hey, that thing that I told you to do, I need you to help move it right now, or it's all going to be gone potentially, right? Um, but like, I know that that's an easy thing to have happen to a lot of people, and we've seen so many heartbreaking stories of that. Um, it's just really, really terrible. Um, multi-sig saves the day. Shameless plug there for the Unchained model. But not everybody even knows that they should be thinking about these different things. It's it's complex. The education is out there, but not necessarily in front of people. It's not intuitive. It's not easy. And um, yeah. Anyway, I think a lot of good will come out of this. A lot of people have learned very difficult lessons, and perhaps they may never come back, and that's awful. Um, a lot of people just got lucky because they just happened to choose a path that saved them, and they happened to be on X at the right time to see what was going on, and take action, and they knew what to do. Um, but I think that coming out of this, which I think we're going to find is actually relatively contained. Um, maybe that's going to be turn out to be completely wrong, but for now, it looks like it's relatively contained. Um, relative to like the vast majority of Bitcoin that's out there and that's being held in self custody is what I mean by relatively contained. Um, but it's certainly going to push the Bitcoin ecosystem to start looking under rocks that people were not looking at before, and to harden things. And it's certainly a wake up call. I think a shot across the bow for sure. And Bitcoin will come out stronger as a result of it. I do believe that. Well, and Terrence, there's this weird like kind of juxtaposition that we Bitcoin advocates are in when it comes to self custody, because it is absolutely best for Bitcoin if self custody is more widespread. It's absolutely best for Bitcoin. At the same time, what you're saying is also true, that it requires radical responsibility and, at least right now, some level of understanding and expertise to know what you're doing and understand the process of what you're doing, and what this very potent power gives you, and what the trade-offs are that you're taking on, and all of these things. And so I think we we Bitcoin advocates have always been very vocal about, you should, like, not your keys, not your coins. You should take self custody. You should do all of this. And there's plenty of educational content out there. But it does kind of raise the question, is like, maybe the world's not quite ready for it yet, or something. Like, maybe it does need to be balanced by, yes, self custody is good. You should learn why it's good. But you also, at least at this point in time, like, you need to spend a significant amount of time and understanding what that responsibility entails, so that you don't end up a victim of your own mistakes.
Hey, good morning. Can you hear me okay? I am pretty angry and upset, in particular with Unchained Capital, and for a number of reasons. First of all, I have my signing devices are both Mark III Coldcards, and and I'm still waiting to hear back clear clarification as to whether or not I'm still okay. Nobody yet has come out and said that I'm not vulnerable, at least at this point. Okay. Well, that's one part. All right, that's one part. Now, because I was smart enough, I booked a concierge for this afternoon. But of course, I was charged $750, and then Unchained then came out and said that they're offering free consultations. They put out a link via their Twitter handle. So I'm expecting, when I have my concierge this afternoon, that I'm going to be refunded the $750. I shouldn't be penalized just because I was smarter than, or quicker than, some other people. But the other part was that they said that they contacted people that would be in a vulnerable position. I did get an email from Unchained Capital saying that, and then I did call the customer services on Friday,
Hey,
and the lady
I hate to interrupt you right now, but part of multi-sig and sovereignty is you don't rely on Unchained Capital for all this stuff, by the way. I'm not from Unchained, but like, you're relying way too much on a company to tell you what to do when you own the 2 of 3 multi-sig, and it's up to
Yeah.
you to figure that out. So yes, you're vulnerable. You need to set up a new vault and put some new keys in and get rid of those things, but you're probably okay in the
Uh-huh.
interim. But anyways, I just want to throw it
And
out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I'd love to
thanks for
jump
your
in.
2 cents. Hey, hold on a second. Thanks for your 2 cents worth, but I actually pay a yearly fee, so I do expect something for that yearly fee that I put in. Oh. Well, you can do that anyway. You can set up your own multi-sig, uh, and not and you. and they even have that capability through Unchained, and you don't have to pay them the $250. Anyway, go. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, go ahead, Trey.
Your name is Shay. Is that what you said?
Uh huh.
Oh, okay, I see. Well, first of all, I totally appreciate the position you're in, and I get it. Um, to like, I guess, talk directly to what it sounds like your situation is that you have two affected cold cards, and the severity of that is that your Bitcoin is safe when it is at rest, but there is some vulnerability when you go to spin that Bitcoin or to move it into a new setup. And without going down the technical rabbit holes of exactly what that looks like, essentially the attackers could be looking for transactions in the mempool, and if they've already got the private keys to your two affected cold cards, they could essentially redirect your Bitcoin in toward themselves as opposed to where you're wanting to send it.
Mm-hmm.
So in the meantime, while it is sitting, your Bitcoin is safe. There's one other caveat here, which is that if you are reusing addresses and you've got two affected seeds that are out there, those are not safe and you should move them. That is not the default functionality at Unchained. I highly doubt that you're in that situation.
Yeah, I'm not.
Anytime you are depositing into the vault, you will have a fresh deposit address.
Yeah.
Um,
Can I just interject here, because I
sure.
want to say that I spent quite a few hours on Friday. I left work on Friday, panicked because of this,
Yeah.
and I we went through the point of, I do have some other signing devices that I could easily switch it to. So I went through the process of going to switch out one of my keys, and I got to the last part where to hit to sweep the transactions, and I followed the layout that was on your website, and it said there was going to be a pop-up with a link to Slipstream, which never came up. And then there's a text box on that page underneath where you have that sort of like photo of the pop-up that said that this would only be available for affected customers. And so I didn't go through with the process because I didn't want to get where I'm transmitting the transaction and then possibly having the problem with RBF.
Yeah. So that slipstream functionality is something that we've enabled within the last couple of days. We have tried to identify all of the accounts and vaults that are being secured by two cold cards, and this functionality is behind a feature flag. If for whatever reason you're not seeing that, it could have just been overlooked, as we're not able to identify that. So if you want to send me an email at trey@unchained.com, I will look into it and see if we can. I'll back channel get you a request to get that account set up for the slipstream piece of it. And
Okay,
then
well,
the last thing I'll say, because Shay, I fully understand your situation. I get it. We have, as you can imagine, unprecedented volume of requests for um, key rotations, signatures from our team and our key, support requests, and there's like a triage process that we need to go to ensure that the people who are most at risk are taken care of first, as well as the people who are coming in the door first, as well as the people who are in different tiers of service that we have. And I know that's not like a great thing to hear necessarily, that I might be like further back in the queue, so to speak. But we do have to make rational decisions as to how to triage the situation and get through the enormity of requests that are coming through the door. And we've been working throughout the weekend to try to do that. So please, again, I totally understand where you're coming from. We're working through things as quickly as we possibly can. And then the last thing I'll just say, and then we can stop with the, we don't want to turn this spaces into an Unchained support call. We can certainly take that offline. Is that there is a difference between a consultation and a concierge piece that you're paying for. Concierge is there to guide you step by step through these sensitive operations of rotating a key or transferring Bitcoin or dealing with some type of compromise. The consultation is more of um, a conversation about what you might need and helping you get down the path of the level of service that you might need for your particular situation. And a lot of times that starts with just a new relationship with Unchained, and what products and services fit your situation. And sometimes it is current clients who may need elevated service and support. And so we're helping to just understand what that is and then pointing you in the right direction. So it sounds like you're down the path that you need to go to. And I promise we will help get you in good working order. And in the meantime, again, if you have 2 affected cold cards in your setup, your Bitcoin is safe at rest as long as 2 things are true. In addition to that, one is that your configuration file, the treasure map, so to speak, all of the public keys around your vault, that file is secure. And as long as your Bitcoin is not in reused addresses. So the level of urgency there for moving, you definitely want to move. We definitely gotta get you into a more secure setup. But the Bitcoin is secure for the time being.
Thank you. Yeah. Yep. Thanks. I'm in a better spot, but I got to say, there's been the whole process has really been a pretty bad level of miscommunication, in my opinion, and that
Well,
I'm
I
not going to
appreciate
take it any further than that.
I appreciate that feedback. We do have a blog post out there that was sent out. There's been multiple posts from the Unchained X account. I've been posting as well. There have been multiple emails and that kind of thing that have gone out. So I apologize if that didn't somehow reach your inbox or get in front of you. But appreciate your understanding.
Yeah, let's do the show. Yeah. It sounds like people are still having issues with connectivity, Terrence. There's a lot of getting DMs saying, I can't hear. People are trying to do everything from shut their phone off. It might be me that's getting all these DMs from other people saying, and if you actually read the comments, there's other people in comments even complaining. So, well, you just had a nice talk with your therapist. Fred's got his hand up.
I don't know if you guys have covered this yet because I've been sort of in and out.
No,
Did
we
you
haven't
guys
because we've
cover
been struggling.
Michael Saylor selling Bitcoin right after he notes. First of all, he said, "Well, this is the most bizarre thing ever." He says, "We're tracking Bitcoin's 200-week moving average and it's premium to that level. Since the 200-week moving average became available, Bitcoin is traded above it 92% of the time. Today, it sits at exactly the line." And then he goes, and then he starts selling it like $300 million. Like it's just amazing to me.
Hey, Fred.
Yeah.
Should we start trying to support Michael as far as saying positive things about him? Because we really don't want that ship to sink, do we? I mean, you're not wrong, but
Well, I'm just saying, Lauren, as everybody's talking about going TradFi, and then here we get
right.
a guy
that makes sense.
who's doing this.
I get it. It's just I've been extremely critical of a lot of people that are managing some of these Bitcoin companies, and it goes against my ethos. But I realize that I don't want them to fail, so I want to be more positive.
I don't want
and
it
I think,
either, but let's just
yeah,
pointing
that
it
would
out.
be bad. That's a great point. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Hey, I'm just sitting here listening, on this particular issue of cold storage. I probably don't have a lot to offer. I would, I mean, my only issue that I would say to people is that the world is going to get a lot more complex moving forward, and I just think it's worth a foundational rethinking. This is not about which wallet is a better wallet. Um, I would just elevate the conversation, knowing that AI will be used as a tool by people who have bad intentions, and there will come a time when the AI operates independently. And in both of those cases, in all likelihood, your defenses are probably not up to snuff. So I would just think that through, what that means. It's less about entropy and rolling dice and cards. It's more about how you present yourself to the digital world.
And let me just like maybe make a PSA for the all of the listeners here, um, especially on the back of this cold card issue. The scammers and the fishers are coming out from under the rocks, and we're going to see that a lot more over the next few days and weeks and months, where um, you'll be getting people who are trying to trick you into essentially just giving them your Bitcoin by giving them your seed phrase. Do not ever, ever, ever do that. I don't care how much urgency they try to create with you. Um, I don't care what is going on. Treat everything in a very skeptical light. Never ever enter your seed phrase into any kind of website or software that you don't understand, or send it in an email or take a photo of it and send it to anybody. Um,
Or send your Bitcoin to one person who promises you that they will send it, redistribute it to the victims.
Correct. Yes. Great example. Um, just
Trey,
assume that everything's a scam, and keep a level head and breathe a little bit. Never ever
I
like
think
answer the
Trey,
phone to somebody calling from Google, because nobody will call you from Google. They're just trying to steal your Bitcoin.
you're kind of outlining what's going on today, which will become, I think, the future attack vector of AI enabled tools and agentic AI, which is the human factor, which is going after you and social engineering. So you may be able to create uh, a seed phrase and all of that that is de facto unbreakable with the current technology. But you still are in possession of your access protocols to your Bitcoin. And that could be the way that you manage your seed phrase, whether it be single sig, multi sig, two of two, two of three, all those different protocols. At some level, the humans are the underbelly of any security design. And I would just, again, I'm not advocating a solution. I'm advocating a concept that people start thinking about in the sober moments as they're reflecting on what happened here. And that is the idea that humans um, will be better off adjusting to this by intentionally adding friction to the access to their Bitcoin. If you're holding Bitcoin in cold storage today, in all likelihood, you don't need it tomorrow. You need it. You do need access to it, but you don't need it instantly at all times. Therefore, use that attribute to your advantage by adding friction. That makes it very difficult for a digital actor to get in there. So, if I had a 30-day waiting period, or I had sign off on a trust, or you come up with whatever friction you want. Uh, those friction solutions are going to, I think, protect us, at least in the short term, against digital incursions that are going to come from AI enabled hacks.
Yeah, and in terms of this incident, and even I've been at Unchained 5 years. Very very few people lose Bitcoin with the model that we have. Nobody has that I'm aware of, in terms of this CoinKite or Coldcard issue, lost any Bitcoin. So far, anyway, right? That's awesome. That's great. There are instances where Unchained clients lose Bitcoin, and what happens most of the time is that they are tricked, social engineered into sending their Bitcoin to the attacker, thinking that they're getting support from somebody from Unchained, or um, whatever the other tricks up their sleeve they have. And so, and by the way, this is not related just to self custody. The same types of attacks are used for people who store their Bitcoin on exchanges as well. It's creating urgency. It's using that urgency to fluster the victim, and then getting them to essentially voluntarily either sign a transaction with their private keys and send the Bitcoin in what they think is a safe direction, but turns out to be the attacker's address, or log into their Coinbase account or whatever and go through a process of withdrawing Bitcoin to something that they think is safe, and turns out to not be, right? So um, anyway, just in light of what is going on, please head on a swivel. Again, nobody from Google or Apple will call you. That's not how they operate. Don't pick up the phone. If you think there might be a legitimate thing, hang up and call them back on the numbers that you have researched to be their support numbers. Go through their channels that way. But just be very careful, because the volume of these social engineering attempts is going to increase.
I sign off on what Trey Ball just said. What about you, Terrence? That's some good stuff right there. Well, there's a Bitcoin minimalist in the room right now. I'll try that. I'll do my job here. I was talking about the Bitcoin minimalist, Vinny Bitcoins, right here.
Yeah, I didn't get that inside joke. It seemed like Mars was laughing at it too. I was kind of like, oh, what does that mean?
Yeah, just like that. Exactly like that, actually.
It's not complicated. It's the opposite of a maximalist or minimalist.
Right.
Yeah,
He owns all sorts of coins.
My position is like you should diversify your Bitcoin holdings across ETFs, self custody, if that's important to you, or on on a bank at a bank, right? So yeah, you just diversify your risk. That's my position.
You should only diversify what you plan to lose at some point, because the only reason we're all here, guys, is because we don't trust the institutions. Like, I think a lot of people are
And our
getting caught up
moms.
in the psyop of the boomer suit coiners saying, put your Bitcoin with IBIT, put your Bitcoin with Fidelity, when in fact, the only reason they're here is because we don't fucking trust them in the first place. So it's kind of antithetical to this entire movement. Stay strong. I mean, really, this comes to personal responsibility, radical responsibility. And if you aren't willing to put in the work, then maybe you're going to get rugged. And that's kind of the natural selection here. Unfortunately, it's kind of that way. It's kind of a fucked up natural selection filter. But maybe it was meant that way. And, the most, weird thing of this entire psyop is, finding out that NVK is in fact a Zionist, which is also very
Hey, G
interesting.
Money, the first part of your tirade there, it's quite an oxymoron, isn't it? Where it's like, wait, we're actually creating this thing to take the banks down. And yet here we are saying, no, you need to let the banks custody your Bitcoin. That's just,
Yeah,
it's
I
a
don't
head
get it.
scratcher.
I don't get
Yeah.
how they actually logic their way through any of that, to be honest.
Well, we just had a self
They
custody bug.
throw a tie on, boys. Let's go. Put that tie on.
Well, first of
No,
all, Mitch and Trey are badass motherfucking patriot motherfuckers. So badasses in their own way. But and
we don't say fuck. We say make
Lauren's pretty
sweet, sweet
badass
love.
too. Yeah, he's punk rock.
Thank you. Love you too, G
And what about
Money.
me, G Money?
You're a minimalist. Hey,
Yeah.
I appreciate G Money's opinions, even though I don't endorse them all. But I also see everybody as on their own journey and doing what's best for them. And one thing I've learned from this is I don't want to get in the echo chamber of, hey, if we don't cookie cutter into this little pattern and become this little cult, then you're not a cool Bitcoin kid. So for me, I'll just throw out what I see as my truth based on fact as I see it. And we can all use the hive mind and work together, but just make your own choices that is best for you, your family, your loved ones, and your future. Other than that, don't try to join a cult. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was.
well,
I'm like, you're strong enough, you're smart enough, and by golly, go ahead, Chad.
you would think it was me.
Oh, sorry, Mars. I heard a
Chad's hand
voice
up.
and I saw a
Oh, it's
hand.
my voice. I was just gonna
Chad has
say,
a hand, so let's go. Mars probably just has some
yeah, I was just
little
gonna say,
quick
bro,
piece of nonsense, and then we'll move to Chad.
you're in the cult, dude. Like you're in it.
Mars, come on, man.
Now we just manage it the best we can.
I've never
But
sunned my balls one
we're in
time.
the
I'm
cult,
not in the
dude.
cult.
We're in it.
Colt's kind of nice.
Shoot.
It's like a
Go
built for
ahead, Chad.
community.
Hey, hello from Blockcut 960-884. Yeah, Lauren, you said what I was looking to say, which is mainly like, look, everybody has their own journey, and my heart obviously goes out to everybody, and I'm thrilled to have folks like Trey out there helping everybody out. The community's been amazing. I think that's been one of the best parts to watch and be a part of and to learn from. This has been a great learning opportunity for everybody, depending, your situation. But, my 2 cents are you got to be able to handle the risk. Like G Money said, this is tremendous personal responsibility. Like I've never faced in my adult life, and I'm still learning, and it's going to be a while. But anybody, I'm talking to people that are new on this call. Take baby steps because if you'd launched into a cold card queue setup and gotten it set up, and then you couldn't function fast enough, you were screwed. It's like there's real risks out here. And to G Money's point, he's right. This is all about self sovereignty and responsibility, and this is from here until for the next 3 years, I'm so wildly bullish about, Mars for you, for price. I consider it purchasing power, but we're going up from here. This might not be the exact bottom, but we're going up. We're going to get stronger from this, the conversations, the people. I just want to thank everybody out there and stay strong.
I brought him up as you requested. So
Hey,
what's going
yeah.
on, Mitch?
I mean, this was like I'm assuming everybody can kind of relate. Like, probably the most unnerving thing I've ever experienced in Bitcoin, and I didn't even lose a single Satoshi, so I can't imagine how people that did feel. But I to some extent sympathize with what the British hodls of the world are saying. Like a lot of people probably should just hold IBIT. Now, it to me, I view it as basically you need to do collaborative 2 of 3 multi-sig or just hold Bitcoin on an exchange. Like I don't think there's much room to play in the middle. You either need to know what you're doing and be fully self-sovereign in the most secure way, or just trust that one of these institutions is going to do it better. Like it doesn't have to be IBIT. It could be River or Strike or Fidelity or whomever, but it's not the time to play around, and single sig is just not going to cut it.
Hey, Terrence, I'm not a huge fan of everybody using grandma as an excuse or as a saying, hey, grandma should keep IBIT because one of my grandmas died back in the, one of mine died back in the 80s. And the other one I actually found deceased, which was traumatic and horrific for me. So it always reminds me of that. So maybe we can use grandpa as a, that was in the early 90s. I need a good cry. Yeah, fetal position, quivering. Anyway, I digress. We haven't said hi to everybody up here either. And I was curious what Thomas's space was about last night because Puncher and I became friends again. At least we followed each other.
Yeah.
Well, in my opinion, we never were not friends, but we just were. Yeah.
Puncher is on the BIP 110 issue, extremely passionate, and Andy's Irish, so and
Bad
he's
combo.
self-aware enough. He's self-aware enough to know that the discussions will escalate, and the Irish will come out, and he will do things or say things that he'll regret the moment he says it. So
we're a lot alike, Puncher and I.
Yeah. So I think he's self-selected to just be. Now that's this is the conversations I've had with him offline. We talked a lot and we spent some time together, and that's it. I mean, I have the greatest respect for him. I mean, when I spent about, maybe we hung out at a local bar down in the Jersey Shore. We were there for probably 3.5 hours. I don't like to drink that much. Well, I don't know how many beers I had, but it was more than 4.
It was a gay bar.
But anyway, we were going through all those different things in life. I would tell you what we didn't talk about really Bitcoin at all. We talked about just general things in life. And what I find fascinating about Puncher is his life arc story. He was a fighter pilot. We all saw Top Gun. And we're like, yeah, I want to do that. Well, he did that. And so when he came out of the military, he and I ended up, we cut the same rug. We were in the same geography at the same time, but our paths never crossed. But anyway, so we talked a lot about that. And, when he came out of the military after 25 years, he had saved up some money and all of that. And he got involved. He's told these stories a little bit, but it was a little more details when we were talking. But he got wiped out, and so now he's and he's in his late 40s, and now he's like has to start over, and it's hard for me to find find somebody who I know who hustles more than he does. He's involved in so many different projects, so many different things. And, we never really, I don't even think we really even got through it all. So I have the ultimate respect for him, for somebody who doesn't let the grass grow under his feet. And anyway, so he self-selected out. When he blocked people, it was for his own protection, because he didn't want to get into or say things to people that he couldn't take back. And I assume that.
Okay, but Thomas,
Yeah.
this is a point to consider. But when you make him co-host, hundreds of Bitcoiners can't even listen to that conversation that you guys are running about one of the biggest decisions we've had to make. We're going to make regarding protocol changes to Bitcoin coming up in less than 6 days. So
Yeah, I saw
my
that.
my question to you is, why does he need to be co-host in your space if he is very proudly and actively blocking anyone that doesn't agree with him?
Yeah, so I saw that, Mars. I saw that note. I knew he blocked a few people. I didn't know he blocked that many.
I'm just guessing. I mean, he's posting all over that he's filtering his Twitter node, and he has the right to do so. And I've just heard countless people saying that they can't be a part of these spaces. Maybe it's not that much, but it's enough. Even if it's dozens,
I'll just say it this way: he and I were talking on the phone off of X, right? Just on the cell phone. We were just chatting, and we had talked quite a bit. And we were largely talking about not so much BIP 110, because I'd like to elevate the conversation above that issue, because there's plenty of people talking about it and arguing about it. And I just think there are some higher order first principles that we should be discussing, which is Bitcoin, or can Bitcoin come under attack systemically? And how should we be thinking about that? So when we had that conversation in the morning, when we were just on the phone, he's like, can you host a space like that? And I'll co-host it. And I said, sure. So that was the genesis of it. And then, people like Mechanic jumped up, and I would say at least an hour and a half of it became a discussion on that. I asked Mechanic a lot of questions, and most of the questions I'm asking I'm trying to ask on behalf of, to some extent, myself, but also the audience who just kind of wants to know the details. There was no arguing on the space. It was not like a point counterpoint. It was just, again, it was just a conversation. Now, I don't block people apart from occasionally someone will make a threat, or if it's and that happens, but an overt bot, with 0 followers has spun up their account 10 minutes ago, I'll block that kind of stuff. If they're selling something in the account, or impersonators, people are impersonating other people, I'll block that. But I don't like to block people. I prefer to just back off or mute the button. But that I'm just giving you what we intended to talk about was how we should we think about if Bitcoin is going to win the way we think it's going to, the way Bitcoiners think about the future, about how dominant it could be in the marketplace. If it is going to win, then something is going to lose. What is going to lose? The global dominant fiat system. And that system is not simply going to watch while Bitcoin rises in ascendancy. So we should expect attacks coming. Now, whether this Coldcard issue was an attack or not is beside the point. Attacks are coming, and we should be prepared because this really is a battle. Now, if you don't think it's a battle, then you've already lost, right? You're going to basically allow Bitcoin to simply to be relegated as a financial instrument like digital gold, but it won't be more than that. If you want it to be more than that, the sovereign asset, the global money that is the global standard across the world, which could happen. It's not that today, and it could happen in 10 years. But on the journey between here and 10 years, it's gonna be a lot of skirmishes that we're gonna have to get through as a community.
Yeah, fair enough. I just wanted to make the point that even though you don't block people, you're allowing Puncher to control your space by him being co-host. Just
Well,
something to
I
consider.
hosted, I just looked on my analytics. I've only hosted 3 spaces ever. I don't like to do it. I'm not good at it. I mean, there is a real skill. Like Lauren and Terrence are doing it for a long time. There's a real skill to it. Managing the speakers, who's coming up. I'll co-host for people sometimes, and I'm basically just when I do that, I'm just simply deciding who comes up and who doesn't, based on if we know them or not. But I don't like to do the co-hosting or the hosting to a large extent because I don't want to be forced to pay attention all the time. I'm doing a lot of other things sometimes. I may show on stage, but I may be muted on a phone call, or I may have to walk away. And if you're on a 3 or 4 hour space, there's no way you can pay attention the whole time. And it's not quite like, sometimes like Fred, as an example, he'll spark up a space and, he might be gone for 45 minutes or so. I don't do that. But at the same time, I don't want the responsibility of doing it because it's just not, you got to know what you're good at. I'm not good at it. So I don't like to do it. So I've only done 3. And I probably, my wife doesn't like it when I do it. So it's anyway.
Blocking
That's
prolifically is kind of dangerous for like the person doing the blocking, right? Because the problem is that you end up in more of an echo chamber than you otherwise would be. I try to, I have a
Yeah.
few blocks and I have a few mutes, but I try not to do that if at all possible. The blocks that I'm doing are because you are like inhibiting some like severe hostility and just speaking like a total,
Yeah, Trey, that's my
yeah.
protocol as well. I mute Kramer, the guy from CNBC. I mute him. I don't ever want to see anything associated with him. Well, I mean, I see people do the contra trade. He just rubs me the wrong way. So I prefer not to see it. So I opt out. But look, X already is an echo chamber. If you further make it a provincial echo chamber, you're really running that risk, Trey, that you were saying that it can be dangerous because it affects your worldview. Now, I spend quite a bit of time. I do the equivalent of a Spaces call outside of X. It's just with my business partners, and they're not on this platform. And no, it's a private call. I'm just saying I do it twice a week. It's the calls are 2 hours. We don't do it. Sometimes we cancel, but
I think those are called masterminds in the real world, IRL, outside of X.
yeah. So we just do it, and we share what's going on with ideas. It really evolved out of some of the business development stuff we were doing. I don't I don't pursue business as much as I used to, but I would say a lot of what we're doing is just looking at macros, looking at politics, looking at what's going on. Some of my partners have very different perspectives. Everybody has at least a toe in Bitcoin, but they have different views about what it is and what it's not. But what it reminds me all the time, because I do it a couple times a week, is it reminds me of the fact that X is a bit of an echo chamber, and that the things we talk about, I simply do not experience outside of this platform. So if I go to a town hall meeting, if I go talk to people at the bar, if I go on a road trip and talk to people, if I talk to my business, they don't talk about any of this stuff. Not Taryn said not even close. And so you to me it's important. I'm very interested in macro. I like to see what's going on. I like to understand political trends. I like anthropology. I like to understand how culture is changing things. At the same time, I want to know all the details that's going on in the Bitcoin world, because I have a lot vested, and I have a lot of exposure. So I want to make sure that I'm being diligent. But at the same time, when I zoom out, now what do I hear that's talked about quite a bit? People do talk about AI. I hear about that in various contexts around the impacts that it has on their job, around the job market. People will speak in amazement about some of the things that are happening about it. So I do hear about that. Not quite at the level of detail that we talk about on X, but I never hear about. I never hear the word sovereign and Bitcoin in the same sentence outside of X, or one of these conferences that we might go to. And so, in that sense, look, it's very early. We're still very early in the journey here, because and I think it's a function of the fact that right now Bitcoin has not been performing well as the culture sees it. So if you do talk to somebody outside of here and they say, hey, Bitcoin, I heard it's down. Well, that's true, it is down, but I point out to them that a couple years ago, before it got into the ETFs, it was at 42,000, and now it's at 65,000. I said, that's not that bad. That's pretty good. They say, well, yeah, if I bought Nvidia, I'd do better. Well, that's true. If you can go pick some stocks, you're going to do better. But you can also pick some ones that are dogs, and you could lose money. So if you want to have those conversations, you can have them. Now, what's going to happen, I think, we will get to a point where all-time highs start getting printed again. Bitcoin will hit a new all-time high, and it will re-enter what I'll call the common public square of conversation. So when we hit 150 or 200,000 at some point in the future, I hope soon, you will then go to the local bar, you'll go to the town hall meeting, you'll go to the friends gathering, and people will bring it up. They're not going to bring it up today, but because it's going to hit the media, it's going to hit all kinds of stuff, because people are going to focus on that asset class, and that to me is a great time to talk about largely about the journey and what's required to do that. And I fully expect people to say things like, "Oh, you're lucky that you're in that." And I would just say, really, luck has got nothing to do with it at this point. If you happen to buy in at the recent bottom and had a nice ride up over 12 or 15 months, yeah, that might be lucky. But if you've been in it for 10 years and gone on a roller coaster ride and held through that, there's not a lot of luck there, because you are taking quite a bit of capital risk on your portfolio on that roller coaster ride. Now, we're all very confident that roller coaster ride ends in a good destination, but while you're on the downhill, I wouldn't be the only one on this space right now that's lost some sleep over it. And so it's not luck, and that's a great opportunity when someone says, "Oh, you're lucky." You say, "No, well, it's a little bit more complicated than that." And anyway, I'm like I said, I'm bullish about where we're headed. I just don't know what the road ahead looks like in the immediate future.
Hey, thanks. I was coming up to talk about this battle of fiat that Thomas brought up, and I really was coming up to talk about big Bitcoin versus pleb or sovereign holder, like Thomas just said. One thing I caution, big Bitcoin and people, I hold IBIT because some of my retirement, it's easier to have it in IBIT and I can't get it out without quitting my job. So there is a use for the financial instrument, and I self custody Bitcoin. And I would rather be 100%, but right now I can't. The one thing I warn, if big Bitcoin is listening and there are attacks, without self custody pleb Bitcoin, if it's 100% in ETFs, it has no value. Like, even though I'm a Bitcoiner, its value is in self custody, that it's for everybody, that I can send it to anybody, that I can run my own node, that I can mine it. If 100% is in an ETF, it has no value. The reason that works with gold is somebody can steal it and the ETF that it represents, and there is something. If Bitcoin doesn't have the benefit that anybody can send it to anybody and all the benefits of Bitcoin, there is no value in it as a financial instrument. So I don't think this was the fiat group attacking Bitcoin. I think it was just a scammer looking to steal. But we do have to be careful before we give up our keys. The people that are going to exchanges and leaving self-custody, if there is no self-custody in Bitcoin, there is no value in Bitcoin. It serves no purpose in an ETF with what it is.
I'm always here, like a rash. I like a little baklava.
Yeah, if only somebody still sold it and shipped it online, huh?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
there he is.
exactly.
What's up, guys? How you doing? Yeah, I've just been listening a lot. I kind of was just like, my interest in Bitcoin was kind of waning over the past, I don't know, off and on years and months, whatever. And then I'm just like hopping in spaces the past couple of weeks, and I'm like, I just want to reignite this. And then of course this shit happens. I'm like, not like this, but here we go. Like here we go with another one of these things. This one I think hit a lot harder than any of them in the past. But I mean, we've been through some shit, right, with Bitcoin. This is just part of the ride, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it. But I think it's a good reminder to everybody that I know the last guy said Bitcoin's for everyone, but it's not. It's not for everyone. It's for anyone. There's a big difference in that language though, because not everyone needs Bitcoin. Not everyone needs self-custody Bitcoin. I certainly do. That's certainly what it's there for me. Like that's what I want. I want to be able to hold my own Bitcoin. I want to be able to manage my own wealth. It was never about, it wasn't like this. I never saw it as like this investment opportunity. Um, and the idea that all Bitcoiners are just like this group that all thinks alike and has the similar motivations is just false. I mean, we're all here for different reasons. Lots of us are enemies. Lots of us are friends, and that's just the reality of it. And there's going to be companies that fuck up, and things are going to fall apart, and it's going to feel bad, and bear market's going to be hard, and it's just going to feel like, how's Bitcoin ever going to recover from this? And then it usually does. Maybe it won't this time. Who knows, right? I mean, that's just part of the ride. We don't know. Like, dude, we can't just go off of past experience. But either way, I don't know. I saw something special in Bitcoin a long time ago when it was just used by a bunch of crazy anarchists in the woods, buying sandwiches and shit with it. And to me, that was like, hey, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want from Bitcoin. And it's grown into so much, and so many more people have entered the space. And there was a time when I was like, I don't want these people in here. These aren't Bitcoiners. And at some point, you just have to accept that that's the reality. There's going to be people that you don't like using it, and there's going to be people here for reasons that you disagree with. But either way, that's Bitcoin at the end of the day. Yeah, and it's also a good reminder that Bitcoin's it was never easy. Self custody was never easy. It was never easy. It's not easy now, and it won't be easy in 20 years. And that's just the reality. And I think a lot of people got sold on the idea that it was easy. I mean, I worked for some early Bitcoin companies, and I worked for one of the biggest hot wallets at the time back in the day, back in like 2013. And I can't tell you how many support tickets I answered where people lost funds and there was absolutely nothing I can do about it because they forgot a password or something, or they fell for a phishing email. And I just had to respond to them and let them know, like there's so many instances of that. And we're talking in dollar terms today, just astronomical amounts of money that were just lost. And it just, I'm still like, I have like that survivor's guilt. I have like, I think like what nurses and doctors go through when they have to just deal with like patients who are dying and shit like that. Like it's like a level of that in some ways, just from ask anybody who's ever worked support in this industry. It can be really brutal. So this sucks. Seeing this happen past couple of days is it's just felt awful. But this isn't the first time, and it won't be the last.
So, first of all, I can just say that my heart goes out to everybody who lost money, and it's been 5,000 addresses now. But you know what? I mean, the solution is not the end of self custody. It's going to be better self custody. Because if you can learn something from the Indians, if not India's Bitcoin mine, you can just learn something like this that, at the end of the day, gold has been pulled into our muscle memory for thousands of years. And especially for the last 78 years, since we've lost about 99.5% of our purchasing power, especially in dollar terms. I mean, the rupee was 3.3 rupees to a dollar in 1947. We had a current account surplus, and now it's about 96 rupees. So every government has funded it through debasement. So gold has been ingrained into us. Now, gold is a bearer asset just like Bitcoin. But how many Indians actually hypothecate gold? Very few. They hold it physically, personally in their safety boxes or in their houses as jewelry or as gold coins or bars or whatever. So I think similar things will happen to Bitcoin. The solution to Bitcoin self-custody, which is going to go through and undergo an C level of change now, in my opinion, but is not, the answer is not IBIT or is not some other ETF or whatever, simply because of the fact that it's an IOU. As a hardcore Bitcoiner, I don't believe in IOUs. It has counterparty risk. So I think although it pains me very badly, tears flow from my ears every time I see that video from Terence where so many people have lost money, and it just like everybody did everything right and they still lost money. But at the end of the day, the solution is not IBIT, in my opinion. I think we will find a solution. Technology will find its way. It's a dark day for us, everybody in the Bitcoin community, because people who did everything right. And history has a certain way of, choosing its instruments very cruelly. It's like with the maximum amount of irony that, people who did everything right still got scrapped on their asses, whipped on their asses. But I personally feel that we'll find a way out. There will be a way out. And if you can learn something from the Indians, is that Bitcoin, just like gold, is a zero counterparty risk asset. It's a bearer asset. That's the beauty about Bitcoin. Apart from the fact that it's digital and immutable and decentralized, it's
Hey,
a 21st century
Terrence,
upgrade.
you got to get ready
We all teach
to rug
everybody
this
about
guy.
everything, but
I
self
mean,
custody is very important.
yank
Very
yank the
important.
magic carpet. No, India can get on one and just roll and roll and roll. But yeah, we appreciate you. Don't. Anyway, sorry, Terrence. Back to you. Yeah, you were. I pulled the carpet.
I'll try to keep it short. Hi, everyone. Great spaces. I was glad to hear that Lauren and Puncha are friends again. I, this time has been hard. We're starting with the Corby Knots issue and people fighting about that, and then the cold card issue that stopped that fighting for a little bit, and has been really hard on I think people like me because I'm not that techie. Yes, I do run a node. I do run a NOTS node, and I know that's not a popular opinion up here. But I also am willing to go with consensus. I don't want to see any splits happening, and I just going with the best information that I can get, and that's where I am. But with this cold card happening as well, that was even quite technical for me to work that out. And I just think that people like my level, I know Terrence is an expert, and many of you guys here are experts, more experts in this area. I just think that going forward, it's gonna have to become easier. You know, I'm grateful I haven't lost any, and so far I've been able to do all that stuff, but it really pushes me to the limit. And I'd like to see, and I do think self custody will get easier. This responsibility side will always be a lot. And I like that side. I want to be responsible for my own wealth. As we know, it's not in the bank anyway. So I want to hold self custody, but I do feel, yeah, this pushed me to the limit. And if there was another option, I might be running for the hills, but I don't see another option. So I'm still here. Thanks.
The good. Hey, Terrence. So just want to reiterate the majority of Bitcoin, the vast majority, is held in self custody. That's number one. So the idea that self custody is dead is nonsense. And the idea that everybody's going to be putting it in JP Morgan or Fidelity is also nonsense. And the idea that Trezor is going to go bankrupt is, and there will be no self custody, is nonsense. You know, people self custody before there was hardware wallets. You know, and they're going to be continuing to self custody for the next 100 years. Okay, so you know, it's not for everybody. You know, I would not recommend a lot of people self custody because there's a ton of risks and things to understand. So I'm 100% with you, Terrence. That in fact, and before British starts ranting against me and saying I'm doing it for followers, I will say that the entire reason that I have any followers on X is because I was recommending the ETF. Okay, so just that's a little history. That's why Fred Krueger has more than 1,000 followers, because I was pushing heavily the ETF 2 years ago. So, and the other thing, last thing I will say is, you know, today we had Saylor just starting to dump Bitcoin on the grounds that he needs to protect the STRC. So, you know, you can go one of two ways here, right? You can do your own self custody. You can take the risk. You can hold Bitcoin in a custodian like Fidelity. I think that makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. Or you can buy an ETF, or you can go buy something like Naka, you know, and you know, or you know, which a bunch of people, I won't name names, but a bunch of people were recommending Naka not too long ago. So yeah, there's a lot of it's a wide spectrum, but self custody is not dead, and we probably should recommend it a little less in these spaces, but it's something that if you're interested in it, I think it's worth it.
Good morning, Terrence. Thanks for inviting me up. I'm not going to stay, but I appreciate listening. So I just wanted to come up and say hi. Appreciate all of you guys. And some quick thoughts on the part that I've heard so far and what I've been hearing over the last couple days. Amazing to see the community come together. I know I've gotten a really good amount of assistance from selfless Bitcoiners who are 24/7 helping and trying to sort through all this mess and make sure the rest of everything that I have is okay. And so it's very humbling and I'm really grateful for it. But I understand like the anger firsthand. And then like all the kind of stages of grief and disbelief and confusion and heartache, also firsthand. So I still feel like though, for people who are here because they sense something different in Bitcoin, or there is the freedom money aspect to it that I agree with, that self-custody is not going away, like how quickly we forget. And I've heard people ranting that, IBIT is too big to fail, and so therefore it's safe. And again, how quickly we kind of forget. Not so many years ago, people were being unbanked, people were being shut down, people's funds were being frozen, accounts are being frozen. So like they might be too big to fail. Bank of America might be too big to fail, but they're not too big to fail you. So I think level-headedness is the way to go. And like Mandrick was saying, like accepting that Bitcoin is not for everyone, but it is for anyone in any way that they want to use it. And so even having a split, kind of portfolio of non-KYC, KYC, self-custody, and some, investments in ETFs or whatever, and spreading it out a little bit to make people aware that there are options and they can feel safe, knowing that they're, the entire amount of their network is not necessarily at risk is very valid at this point. And I do agree. I agree that it should be harder, but I think that's going to make it easier, right? Because I think that, maybe in the future, all hardware wallets will come with dice and it'll just be something that you do. And so it'll be normalized. And then it won't seem hard if it's normalized. You know what I mean? So like, I'm trying to be positive today. I'm kind of just going through and have been given some instructions on like work to do, what I have to do to like download and save stuff from my oldest wallet and those transactions and everything like that for. Um, yes, yes. But not from my MK4 or my Q. So like not total, but those were the first ones. And what's been hard for me to figure out, right, is kind of what we're talking about when you're new. And so in 20 and 21, I was super new and I had Bitcoin and I was investing in Bitcoin and I was trading Bitcoin and I had Binance accounts and I had a Bybit account with a VPN and I was trading and I had Coinbase. And I was dumping all my fucking gains into Bitcoin and into that wallet and didn't know a shit thing about coin control or managing any of it or keeping track of any of it. Like I knew nothing. And then when I started, correct. So then as I started to learn and understand and stop fucking around and really began to like learn about Bitcoin and understand Bitcoin, why Bitcoin was important, what drew it to me in the first place, right? There's more than the number go up. That was a pain point for me that I needed to feel a little bit of control and some sovereignty, given what was going on with COVID and everything. And so when I started to learn about it, then I started fresh, right, with a new wallet and learning how to manage things properly, and left that one. I left that one sitting there because I didn't know what to do about it. I figured it's safe, and when I give it to my kids, when I'm gone or 15 years from now, it won't fucking matter where it came from, right? It won't matter. But those were some of my most like, it seems silly, but like my first and my most prideful and sloppiest and sometimes biggest UTXOs, right? So again, with huge amounts of humility and gratitude for the help that I'm getting, I'm trying to just stay even and stay uncompromised in my principles and what my belief in Bitcoin is for me. and not judge what it is for other people. And I think that that's where I'm feeling the most okay with right now, is that, yeah, absolutely. It's not for everyone, but it is for anyone, and balancing things out. You don't have to be hardcore one way or the other, right? You can have whatever you want, however you want, right? Like, you can still be a Bitcoiner and not necessarily have to hold your own, or just keep a little spending wallet with Cash App and use it here and there, and that still supports the network, but you don't have to be like a diehard all or nothing, right? So I'm just trying to make sure that, like, like Paula was mentioning, it's been a rough bear market. It's been a rough year, and a lot of people at each other's throats, and in the end, I'm seeing people come together and agree that, like, we just want Bitcoin to win. So that's all I have.
Speaking of coming together, I just want to come up here and glaze Portland Hodl for saving lots of multi-sig plebs out there from getting. Also, all you BIP 110ers were shitting on that guy for being such a, thinking that he was an attack on Bitcoin when in fact he saved people. And all the BIP 110ers, they haven't saved shit. Secondly, I'm going to melt down all of my fucking cold cards and make dice out of them. Thank you.
Hey, I just wanted to make it clear. I am for self custody as someone moving towards the Bitcoin standard. I was just trying to make it, and also somebody who follows what Jeff Booth says, that fiat and Bitcoin will not coexist one day. And even if that's in the future, I honestly want to be on the Bitcoin standard. I feel better there. I just feel that it, it needs to be safer. And maybe it will get harder. I'm hoping it will get easier, but safer. So I just want to make that clear. I'm all for self custody.
Hey, good evening, fellas.
Oh
Oh,
No,
dear.
look,
no,
the
no.
guy that
Oh dear
blocks
Lord.
everybody. Fuck this guy.
Bad dog. Bad. Go ahead, Britter. Sorry.
Yeah, look. Despite all of the LARPing that goes off on Bitcoin Spaces, the narrative for self custody on 80 to 90% of incoming future capital is dead at this point. Not a single Bitcoiner can tell me that beyond a reasonable doubt they would recommend any specific hardware wallet, and if they can do that, then they are someone who is so astronomically technical that the new capital coming in would just rather not own the asset than become that technical. Secondly, when I'm hearing someone like Fred say, and he's run away obviously every time it happens, every time I hear Fred say, okay, cool, self custody is not dead, he immediately follows it up with, well, maybe we shouldn't mention it on these spaces. Now, those two things, those two sentiments don't go together. If it's not dead, then you should be railing about it on these spaces and telling everyone about it. And the problem right now is I would like anyone here to recommend me beyond the reasonable doubt where I can put 100% of my Bitcoin and they're comfortable that it's absolutely safe and they're willing to guarantee it.
I can take.
Nobody's willing to do that.
I can
Anchor
take
So
that.
watch.
hold on, let me finish. Let me finish. So that's what's going on here. The narrative, even despite all of this, the price of Bitcoin is up. This is completely now irrelevant to Bitcoin. Bitcoiners are irrelevant to Bitcoin at this point. The asset's grown up too much. It is gone to a new stratosphere at this point, and that's just the reality of it. And I feel sorry for everyone. I know people that have personally lost money because those wallets specifically were being sold on Clubhouse by these idiots, and everyone was glazing them. In fact, I bought my parents a Coldcard, which luckily they didn't use because I just realized these Bitcoiners were glazing the shit out of MVK, and maybe that's my signal to ignore all of this.
British, do
And
you
I'm
still
glad I
use
trusted
Casa?
that.
Multisig, Casa Multisig. Do you still
Yes, I
use it?
used so my final point was that I think the threat evaluation has changed here, right? What's happened here is when no one is saying that the act of self custody is broken. What I'm saying is that the narrative for self custody is completely and utterly dead. And my way of measuring how much to keep in self custody, ever since the ETFs came out, it's always been the same. You can go and see it on all of my videos. It's very simple. Assign a probability for America and the American financial system collapsing in the next 5 years. Take that percentage, put that into a multi-sig, multi-sig self-custody setup. The other lot, I half it, and I put half into IBIT, which is custody with Coinbase, and I put the other half with FBTC, which is custody with Fidelity. That's how I spread my risk.
Good for you.
Up until 4 days ago, the Bitcoiners were saying that self-custody was an order of magnitude safer than anything else. That is factually wrong at this point. That's what needs to be reevaluated. Thank you. No, 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 no.
Terrence,
That is a false
You can't
narrative that
prove
you are
that.
building. That is a false narrative that you are building. That's a false.
is it really
More
Bitcoin
Bitcoins
if
lost
it's
by
not
exchanges, bro.
in if it's not in self custody? Is it really Bitcoin?
Exactly.
I,
Hey, Stefan was
Yeah,
yeah
hello.
he was
Oh,
chiming
it's
in.
Oh yeah,
Hendrix
look, I'll
here.
just let me just throw something in here. Like I'm sure Mandrick's been around for ages as well. Anyone who's been around for a while,
what's up,
I
brother?
think. Look, British makes some good points that maybe the calculus has shifted, but I think the reason many of us kind of, let's say, growing up in Bitcoin, were so strong on self custody is because of all the exchange hacks that happened, right? Mt. Gox, FTX, Celsius, BlockFi, all these things that happen, and I think that's why there's been such a strong focus on self custody. And that's why it was sort of seen as like this, as Michael Saylor said, the paranoid crypto anarchist, dice rolling, multi sig sort of thing. And, many of those episodes, I did episodes with Michael Flaxman where, we tried to kind of put that message out there about like dice rolling and multi sig and all these things. But to be fair, I think yes, we should recognize not everybody nowadays is going to go and do that. They're not all going to do the dice rolling and the multi sig and all the all this extra stuff. I get that, and so I think for me, the way I see it now is, yes, maybe spread your risk a little bit. Use if you're a noob or you're a normal person, right? Maybe that's degrading to. If you just say you're a normal person, you're not the kind of 1% hardcore paranoid crypto anarchist, cypherpunk, libertarian, whatever. Let's say you're a normal person. Well, then just go to Casa, right? You use like BitKey or Casa or something like that. Just use that. And then, yeah, sure. For the 1% hardcore, you go do your hardcore stuff, right? And like take the time to learn. So, I think it's not all or nothing, right? I think that's just at the end of the day, that's what it is. There's still a reason to do it. But yes, nowadays at the maturity of the market, now that there's these different ways of doing Bitcoin, it has shifted. But I still see a strong role for self custody. It's just not the be all end all.
Stefan, and Casa is just one collaborative solution, right? There's so many that you can name. So yeah, I think they're having a great time now because they're having a lot of onboarding these days. I know on Chain, Casa, all of those solutions.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, I've been living through, probably this is my fourth, fifth cycle of Bitcoin. And sort of back in the day, there was really very few options. And one, I don't trust myself with anything. And what I was looking for is avoidance of a single point of failure. And clearly single sig. The solution really, I think, is multi sig. Also, I think in this sort of crisis, you need to sort of have a discussion of entropy of the single sig wallets. Coldcard, under the firmware exploitation had a you know an entropy of a BIP of what 40, where if you have a Ledger or Trezor wallet, you have a 256 bit number, which is a magnitude higher. And with a selection of keys from different providers, you materially enhance your protection. So I don't think that self custody is a way, but again, I don't trust everything in a single point of failure. So I would want to have a diversification of risk. The other thing which I think is interesting is that you could set up something called canary in a coal mine. So in your multi-sig versions, you could have a honeypot which would be available for bots to attack. And as soon as you see a weakness in any of your keys, you move on. And that is an alert signal you can get. So if you've got a 3 or 5 multi-sig, one of them is vulnerable, that will give you a sort of red alert. So yeah, I this couple of weeks, and as a long-term holder, you learn an awful lot through these cycles. And I think that Bitcoin will come out stronger than this. And I know, a lot of people are, suggesting a variety of different solutions. But I'm still very confident. And in terms of the cycle, I consider this to be a complete washout. This, to me, feels like the depths of the FTX crisis. So you just got to hold in there. Okay, there you go.
Hey, real quick, I wanted to expand on something that British Hoddle said. And with respect to him coming from an entirely different background, an entirely different availability of capital and choices and that sort of thing. I think that if you haven't had your bank account frozen or your exchange account frozen, it's easy to say that the narrative for self-custody is dead. But for people who have been through that trauma or were around through those types of traumas, and then just that, the unknown, right? So the idea of that it's trustless, that most Bitcoiners, when they decide to go into self-custody, it's a scary enough thing already that you realize that you are, and you may be not initially, but as you get into it, you realize that you are taking on a gigantic responsibility, and that it is your sole responsibility. And that's kind of the point of it. And not everybody can handle that or wants to handle that. And that's totally fine. But I don't want to lose sight of how the global dynamic, power structures, governments, all of that is shifting in massive ways at the moment. And it was just not that long ago, like I said, that there was kind of a full-on war with our banking system against Bitcoiners or against even cash, not being able to use cash and privacy. So I think that, again, having multiple different options is awesome, but it's not like there's 100% security or 100% guarantee that you are safe at a bank or at an institution either, right? Because Big Brother or some sheik or some person with power or the IRS or whoever can come knocking at any moment, and they don't have to prove that they're right in order to freeze you, right? The burden is on you, and it could take months and years and whatever. So it's not that there's really no third party option that is 100% guaranteeable safe, is I guess what my point is.
Yeah, just
I
ask
just
British
respond to
about
that.
that
It's
when
like
he helped people with gold.
Bad dog. Bad dog.
Yeah, I just wanted to not even really respond. I just wanted to offer another, just basically a rethought of what I said earlier, which is that until 4 days ago, the risk profile of self custody was an order of magnitude less than using something else. All I'm saying is that as Stefan said, that calculus has changed. And as a result of that, you have to change. If you're sitting here going, I'm just going to listen. I was in another spaces, right? And Bitcoin veterans. And there was a person who was highly technical, much more technical than me. And he was recommending BitKey right now. And I said, okay, cool. So BitKey's the thing. Educate me on that. He educated me on that. And I said, right. Now, can you guarantee me beyond a reasonable doubt that BitKey is safe? And have you looked into it as a technical person? And his
Vicky,
immediate response was
Vicky is a
his
custodial. That's custodial. That's not.
hold
That's
on.
not
Hi-
all in.
His hold on. Whatever. Right. Okay. Fair enough. But his immediate response was, I haven't looked into it, but my friends have, and I trust them. It's like, well, this is the same problem we've got with CoinKite now. So this is why my philosophy at this moment in particular time, it may change in the future, is that Bitcoiners cannot be trusted, and therefore we should verify, which is the Bitcoin a LARP in the first place, right? So at this point, I would much rather risk my capital sitting in an institution that overpays nerds and developers with the sole incentive to keep my money safe than three developers in a garage LARPing on the internet about how everyone else is worse than they are and then haven't picked up a bug for 5 years. That's all I'm saying.
Just like people trusted you with gold.
No, yeah. No. I was going to. No, I think I was telling British in another space, like just the same way if one bank fails, you don't say that the total, financial industry is done. Then you don't say that self custody is done because one company, right, had one method of the RNG, generating that failed after they changed the code in 2021, right? Yes, part of the community that was supposed to be auditing this is an open source project. I think we fell as a community on that. I think a lot of influencers were more busy promoting it than maybe auditing it. And I think there's some learning lessons there. But I think, Bitcoin is an anti-fragile decentralized network, and we always come stronger on the other end. So I think, as Mom was saying, we just need to go through this. I think we're going to learn from this. I think self custody is going to become stronger, easier. I think multi-sig will probably have to become easier as well with all these companies, facilitating. And yeah, I think we as a community. One thing I just want to say is one thing I agree with British is that self custody, and I think Samson said this a couple times. You have to be able to go to sleep for 10 years, wake up, and your Bitcoin will still be there, right? And a lot of people, that didn't happen. They were vacationing, they were taking a holiday, and they had to go through extreme measures to save their Bitcoin, those who were able to. And I think that it's just a wake up call that it doesn't happen because it hurts us at the core of our most one of our pillars, right? Which is set it and forget it, right? So I think
Neo,
we
respectfully, Neo, it's worse than that because it's not just that they had to run back from holiday or wherever they were and panic about it. It's the fact that they did the DYOR, did their own research, were recommended this particular product by the experts, were then air gapped, could have put it in a Faraday bag and put it where the sun doesn't shine, and their Bitcoin was still taken. That's the issue.
yeah,
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, a little bit, these my thoughts change as I'm listening, but a little bit to address Neil's point, and I really agree with Hodl in this instance. And I hear Neil say just now, like, well, I think it's going to improve things and we're going to improve. It's like, come on, dude. Like, yes, of course we are. I get that. I get the logic behind it. But you never know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. And especially in this date and time with AI, it is absurd to think that there's ever going to be a point of set it and forget it. In fact, quite the opposite. Set it and check it tomorrow morning and every morning thereafter, because AI is so powerful, we just cannot comprehend the exponentiality of it all.
So do you want to do that? Do you need to do that with your real estate and your stocks?
Well, I don't have stocks, dude. I'm just a pleb.
Right,
Yeah.
sure. But I'm just trying to tell you,
Yeah.
these are the comparison assets for this new money that's coming in, right?
Yeah.
And so if you don't have to do that, you don't have to check your property every day.
Exactly.
You don't have to check your stocks to make sure that they're there every day.
Exactly.
And then you've got an 11% CAGR over 5 years. So
Exactly.
build me the narrative.
Exactly.
Now.
So that's what my next point was going to be. I don't believe I'm going to move out of Bitcoin, but I have to say I am at the lowest point right now for all kinds of reasons before this, and this was just the fucking cherry on the feces sundae. I don't want to lose my generational wealth. My kids have Bitcoin. I don't want them to lose it. My partner has Bitcoin. I don't want her to lose it. People I've turned on to Bitcoin, I don't want them to lose it. But I am questioning that for all the reasons and the thesis of Bitcoin that I still agree with. Its completely fragility, not anti-fragility, is that as far as we know and have developed to this point, our interface with it is always through these mediums that, at least at this point, are trusted third parties. And of course, will get better. But it is on the internet in the world. It is not the same as holding gold. It is not the same as holding cash for, all the reasons I understand why not to do that. Or as British just stated, other assets. And I am questioning for the first time. Yeah, I'm just not sure I'm willing to always be in a position of risk. And yet I understand that everything has risk. But in that spirit of kind of a sovereign individual, I have less. The reality is my foundations have been shaken to the core. I have less control over my Bitcoin in regards to all of this detailed, nuanced, doctoral level technology than I do owning gold or owning real estate or having cash in a bucket. And I'm just faced with the bottom line reality is, man, I love Bitcoin. I love everything it's fucking about. And yet I want to retire. I don't want to be on the street with a fucking sign up. So I'm not sure. I may pull half of it and buy something else and protect it with a fucking clock because I'm not going to go through this.
So regarding the ETFs, I do and have held them since inception, and there are risks there. Let's British. I need you and Joe to jump up and refute me if this is incorrect. But I've spoken with Fidelity on multiple occasions, and it's my understanding that in an instance like BIP 110 or any sort of chain split, whether it's soft or hard fork, that they only keep the longest chain based on their assessment of things, not based on the Bitcoin communities. And so it's a limiting factor. And, it's to say
Yes, that's my understanding, but I believe in incentives. I believe incentives drive everything.
well, so do I. And again, thank you for all the education you've done that helped me learn Bitcoin. But the reality here is that the system for Bitcoin to succeed long term, when you get out into the 2040s, when the block reward and the transaction fees, flip in orders of importance, you need to have self custody Bitcoin to run the whole wheel. So, this is a terrible setback, but it's how we get stronger. And call me unusual, but this whole Coldcard thing has made me even more adherent that we all need to be looking at a self custody setup. Doesn't mean like throw a huge percentage of your net worth if you're not technical, but even if you take $500, $1,000, $2,000 of your whole stack to learn how to do it, have the ability to do it, and slowly move over so that you're covered. Skidoo, man, my heart goes out to you. Work with your team. Contact me if you have to get together people that can help you do it to get to where you need to be. This can shake you. I totally agree. But
Can you just do me one favor and just recommend for Skidoo beyond a reasonable doubt, which cold card he should put his family's wealth into at this point.
Well, I'm not technical, so I'm not going to make that recommendation.
That
The way
that's
I'm
that's
handling no,
exactly
it's
that's
not. That's
exactly
bullshit.
my point. That's my
That's
point.
bullshit, British. I have an appointment this afternoon with the Bitcoin Way, and I do have funds at risk,
Okay,
and
so
I'm not
all of
worried
the
about it because
people,
it's a
all of
just
the
small
people,
amount.
I respect that. All of the people that lost their money with Cold Card had appointments, aka podcasts, with all of the experts that were running these types of businesses and everything else, and they were pointed towards the Cold Card.
Look, we're going to make mistakes, man, and that's sort of the point I'm making. Like, if the ETFs, we cannot be saying there's no risk with the ETFs. That's my
Nobody's
whole
saying
point.
that. By the way, even I haven't said that. What I've said is that the risk assessment that was done on the ETFs has now been repriced, let's say, right? Because the repricing has happened on the self-custody wallets, but that has forced you, if you are an intelligent person that has a reasonable amount of Bitcoin, to go, wait a second, is this really the best way to keep 100% of my stack? Because it doesn't make sense anymore. Because arguably, right? Arguably, the ETFs are as safe or more safe at this moment in time. Might change, but at this moment in time.
I disagree at this point in time. I turn it over to the room.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you. I just want to kind of let you know my perspective is first just going into this. I just want to make a couple points and it'll be quick. I kind of look at it as like people interested in Bitcoin are kind of independently minded. They're like willing to be like independent operator, and it makes me think of Forrest Gump and his shrimp boat. Like if you listed all the reasons why we like Bitcoin besides number go up, we'd sound like that dude telling Forrest about all the ways you could love shrimp. In our mind, we think, oh, it's okay, it's worth the risk to be an independent operator because if we ride out the storm, quote unquote, then maybe the institutions will be wrecked and we can have generational wealth. The reality is independent operators like just work their ass off. They own their boat, but it's work every day, right? And that's what we've signed up for. Now, some people like can't help but want to oversimplify things, and I just want to warn that when you oversimplify things too much, you're increasing how you're leaning on your assumptions, and that's what it can get you. And so when I hear some people on this stage pull up their shrimp boat next to my shrimp boat, and they're like, "Give me 100% assurance I'll know how to captain a boat. Give me 100% assurance I'll catch some shrimp." I just wave at them like Forrest Gump, and I just go about my business, right? Because like that's like we've chosen this way, right? And I'm not talking about people who are just NGU. I'm talking about us. Anyway, my final point is that things are changing. To me,
Would you be saying
I would
this
think,
if you had your money in Cold Card over the last few days?
of yeah, I have self custody, of course. I mean,
No, no, but would
I
you
have
be
all of the
saying
above,
this? Do
brother.
you understand? Like, would you be saying exactly what you're saying about we're all in it together, we've got these dinghies, and we
We're
just
not,
wave at
but you're missing
people?
the point. We're all in our
Missing the
own boat,
point.
bro.
No, no, that's
We're all in
fine.
our own boat.
I'm in
We're
my
not
own
together.
dinghy,
We're
and
not all in it together.
I'm in my own dinghy. You're in your own dinghy. We're dinghying down the same path. Like, would you? All I'm asking is, would you be having the same sentiment if you had actually lost your family's net worth in the last 4 days because of doing exactly what you were told to do by this community?
I can't accept like the premise, man, and I
Well,
get
that
it
is
that
the premise of my
underneath.
friends
No,
that have
it's not.
actually
No, it's
been
not.
through this
You're
in the last
assuming
4 days.
that I'm some kind of like straw man who does like
No,
all the above,
I'm telling
like
you
all
what
in moves.
I'm telling you exactly what's happened to real people that I know that in the last 4 days.
Yeah,
And you're
I know a lady who's
disregarding.
taller than the average man. Okay, let's quit beating the same drum. Okay, people have to use common sense, right? And that's what I was talking about in a second here, which is instead of just touting how independent you are, then maybe you just should start thinking about building some interdependent systems like you, British, discussed with Fidelity and whatnot. You don't have to be all in on anything. It sounds like
No, I
Crazy Pills
agree
when I
with
hear
you on
people
that.
talking about they're all in on
I
anything.
agree
So
with you on that. All I'm saying is
and I think stuff is changing, and I think that
I
like
agree with
even the
you
way we
completely.
educate each other is going to change. It's not
With
going to
this
be
point,
evangelical and John the Baptist anymore. It's going to be game theory. It's going to be like
with this
GFY, and
with
that's
this particular point, I completely agree with you.
I'll pass for now. Actually, wait, Terrence. I'll sell my position in line to HODL for a small little Sats. No, I'm just kidding. I'll pass. How you guys doing?
Yeah, couple things. Last night I actually did get some sleep, not much, but some. All right, first thing. This was by far the worst self-custodial hack in Bitcoin's history.
No, we can't. Yeah, we
Yes,
can't
your
hear
mic
you.
is
Hold
really
on.
bad.
Can you hear me? Hold on. How about it? Can you now? Yeah, I'm in the car driving and it's pouring outside right now. So this was obviously by far the worst self-custodial hack in Bitcoin's history. It's not the only one, but it is the worst. It's nowhere near as bad as some of the trusted third company hacks. I mean, a lot more people lost a lot more money during, when you have money stored with some of these custodial companies. But yeah, whenever you lose money, it's not a good day. Whenever you lose Bitcoin, it's not a good day. I mean, plenty of people lost in Mt. Gox, plenty of people lost in BlockFi, plenty of people lost in with Coldcards. But I do want to say something. Even custodials need to generate private keys. They need to be able to do it safely. Private public key technology still works. Nothing was broken in that end. There was a company that implemented the private public key technology the wrong way. But when properly implemented, which most of the time, the super majority of the time it has been with all these companies, it works. The random number generators, 99% of the time, work. So this isn't really about a self-custodial thing. This is about a company that didn't do its due diligence and created a vulnerability through a bug. Self-custodial is just as good as it was before this happened. I have my mother-in-law who generated a private key on a Trezor in 2012 that hasn't moved it today because I am that confident that random number generator that was used was the one that everyone else reviewed. Like there's a bunch of people that reviewed these, number generators, and I consider it safe. The problem with Coldcard is that nobody reviewed it. Nobody saw it. They reviewed it, but nobody caught it. Their competitors didn't catch it. Their competitors have every incentive in the world to find these bugs, and they didn't catch it. So I really don't think, I mean, the narrative of Bitcoin right now is not good because of what happened. Whenever there's a big hack, self-custodial or otherwise, it's not good. But I don't think self-custody is any weaker today than it was before this hack happened. I mean, I really don't. I think there's the fortunate thing is that also there's not that many cold cards out in the wild compared to, say, Ledger and Trezor and some of these other hardware companies where the has been reviewed by all these LLMs and is now considered to be perfectly okay. These random number generators should work. They should work. They always should work when they're wired together properly. And in this case, the wiring wasn't done right. And it's the fact that nobody caught it, including their competitors, for 5 years, is absolutely bonkers to me. Like, that part is what's crazy to me. But I don't know. I don't think you could compare the amount of people that lost Bitcoin with trusted third companies to self-custody. I just don't think that's a comparable number. That's all.
Yeah, I think it's also just you've got to take the right tool for the job, right? Like, of course, a lot of people recommended Coldcard, but I also think above a certain threshold, you should not be doing single signature, right? Like above a certain threshold of value, you should be doing those advanced steps. right? I obviously I have, obviously it's very sad, people who lost their money. I'm not trying to, put them down, but maybe that was the real error, that people were kind of storing more than they should have. Well, some of them, not all of them, but I think above certain thresholds, it is prudent to look at multi-signature. It is prudent to look at like removing single points of failure, and the higher your stack size, the more you should be thinking about these things like dice rolling, multi-sig, multi-vendor, all of that stuff. Because don't forget, if you did dice roll and if you did have multi-sig with multi-vendors, you were mitigated. And so then instead of everyone like scrambling to try to move money out of their Coldcard MK3 on the default settings, it would have been a matter of, okay, one key out of my 5 or one key out of my 3, I need to rotate that specific key out, right? And that would have been a very different conversation. So, now, again, to what I said, most people are maybe not willing to go to that level of dice rolling, multi-sig, multi-vendor, all that stuff. So for those people, maybe Casa, or maybe Unchained, or one of these guided solutions, right? Or a consultancy service where they talk you through how to do it, right? But I think the fact that people promote a certain tool doesn't mean that's the only tool. It's like, if you said, oh, hey, this is a really great hammer, but you chose the wrong tool for the job, like there is an element of, you have to choose the right tool for the job. Above a certain threshold, you should be using multi-sig. Above a certain threshold, you should be really more careful about that setup. So I just think people have to remember that. Like, instead of just saying, oh, see, there was a hack against Coldcard, it's over for self-custody. It's not really sort of understanding the different ways that you can do self-custody.
Hey guys, appreciate all y'all. I wish British was still up here. I was kind of debating with him last night on his space. But to me, I think this is an important issue. The big question for me, like the last week, has been: is this in a year from now, are we going to look back and think that this is an indictment on one hardware wallet vendor or on self custody in general? I'm hoping that we're going to look back and think this is an indictment on one vendor that fucked up. But yeah, I don't know, man. I hear big influencers in this space. I'm not even that technical, but I hear like big guys with big followings saying stuff like, people who were using a Coldcard were on a centralized system, or BIP 39, the 2048 words doesn't offer enough randomness if you have real entropy. Just stuff that's not true. So, my hope is that, my belief is that, if there was a real problem, or even earlier, someone had mentioned, no disrespect, but this idea that like we're under this big security threat because of AI. I mean, I don't think any of that's true. If that was true, then why haven't Satoshi's coins been hacked? I mean, I think the fundamentals, I think understanding what happened, like that this was a seed generation error with one vendor, is the problem. And what isn't the problem is if you have enough entropy when you're generating your seeds, you're more than well protected. And I think people need to know that. And ultimately, the reason why is because I think self-custody and peer-to-peer are really fucking important for Bitcoin's fundamental value proposition. If we're custodying all this shit in banks and custodians, it loses some of its value. Now, none of that's to say that like you have to self-custody or you have to put it in an ETF. I've never seen that as a black and white, but there's some people who seem to be celebrating this fact, saying like, I told you so, why the hack is still going on. And I just think that's not right. And I think people need to educate themselves on what this really is, and that Bitcoin's actually still very secure. That's what I think. Appreciate it, guys.
I want to go back to something British was talking about. I think Mr. Hoddle too. I mean, you got to think about like when we had really good money in this country or in the world was about 150 years ago, or prior to the Civil War. And you got to think about it, like who was better off, the people who self custodied their gold or gave it up to these wildcat banks, and that prompted all these all the crashes and demand for central planning. So yeah, and you also got to compare the current losses, like 70 million or let's say 100 million. Just compare that to how much fiat has robbed from everybody, and so that's the real check the real purpose why we self custody is just to keep a check on the banks and our the money printer essentially.
I don't know. I just want to comment on it. I think an important aspect of this discussion that is lost. So, we've talked about ad nauseum debate, self custody versus different tiered solutions versus custody solutions versus diversifying risk. To me, all of it's beside the point if you care about Bitcoin adoption. When you care about adoption and you study technological rates of adoption and curves of adoption, what tends to happen with every major technological revolution is that the technology enters people's lives and it is easy to incorporate. It is free of headaches. It gets more and more iterations that make it less tech savvy people to be able to be incorporated into the adoption curve. You can take the example of the internet, right? In the example of internet, most internet users did not run their own servers. They didn't manage internet encryption keys. They didn't host their own email. Yes, some hobbyists did these things at the outset, but as time progressed, we made it simple that any man, woman, and child, and I mean really do mean children now, like 6 and 7 years old, have a phone and have access to information technology and the internet, right? That we made it so simple that your grandmother can literally log on to Facebook. And by the way, we recognize that people are going to put themselves in harm's way. So laws and regulations and program level specifics are implemented into the code to prevent people from ruin. Does it stop all people from making and doing stupid things on the internet? No. But we have learned over time how to mitigate against what we know is to occur, which is user error. This is why we have clawbacks in various aspects of the financial system. This is why there are all sorts of consumer protections built into everything. I can't get into my car without an alarm going off telling me to put my seatbelt on. Okay. So this notion really that people just say, oh, it's personal responsibility, study, spend 10,000 hours studying Bitcoin, verify the code, run it through an LM. It's ridiculous. It's never going to be how you're going to get a billion people into Bitcoin. You have to make it idiot proof. And maybe, just maybe, for the next 10, 20 years, you're going to have custodial solutions be at the forefront with the optionality for the most sophisticated users to take cold storage self custody. And a gentleman spoke, a moment ago. He said something like, well, we need to have cold storage Bitcoin to provide a check. Nothing about custodial solutions prevents anyone from having cold storage Bitcoin. I could have my cold storage stack. You can have it. Anybody who wants to take on that responsibility and live with perhaps a sleepless night because of some issue or hack or something that's out there, go do it. I do it, right? But other people were berated for not doing it. And that's the problem. When they were in these spaces, they were screamed at, if you own iBit, you don't own real Bitcoin. That's a bunch of BS. And it has now resulted in people getting hurt because they were never ready. They never wanted to, do the time. They never were going to do the diligence and active investor behavior to monitor their wallets all the time and monitor social feeds. I mean, there are people today, by the way, that were just recently hacked in this. I got another guy that just called me up about this. It's ongoing. And he hasn't heard anything about this for like 72 hours. We're plugged in, right? But people want to live their lives. They don't want to sit and watch on-chain data all day or watch news articles about the latest hack that's come out. So I just think we need to be. I got a call. I got to jump in a second, but I think we need to be more realistic about what human beings are going to, I think, reasonably be expected to do, and what type of diligence is going to actually occur. Because it's not going to be the super user type diligence. It's going to be a modest, basic level of interest.
It's not for everybody. It's for enough people that we can organize to keep the powers
Then
that
why do
be
people present
in
it like
line.
it's everybody? Everybody just said in the space when I was listening. I was listening for 10 minutes. Everybody should have cold storage. And you said it again. If you say you can't say it's not for everybody.
I never said that.
I know you didn't say that, but people do say that in these spaces all the time. And that is a reach. That is not. I don't think that's a sound statement, and I think it should be rejected by at least Bitcoiners that understand how complicated it can get.
Terrence, this is like highlighting that juxtaposition that I was, talking about earlier in the space. Maybe some people weren't here then, but um, I mean, the problem with that type of positioning, though, and that mentality is that right now we're in a position where it's pretty easy and frictionless for most people to deposit their Bitcoin into an exchange, remove Bitcoin from an exchange. You can't really do that very easily with an ETF, but for like the exchanges that have been around for a while, that have traditionally been serving people in the space, it's pretty free and open, and you have the ability to do that. I think there's valid concern that that might not always be the case in the future, and I do believe that like Bitcoin, in order to be, maximally successful, at least self custody needs to be a core part of that. That doesn't mean that it's going to be 100%. Absolutely, it's not. It's probably always going to be a minority, but that doesn't mean that we should just stop like trying to convince people, persuade people that self custody is, the direction they should at least be thinking, and understanding the optionality that they get and the extra like power that they get that comes with that responsibility from sovereign holding of Bitcoin. If we just give up on that fight and just say, oh, it's way too hard now, maybe there'll be solutions 20 years from now. Well, like, we don't know what the world looks like in 20 years. We don't know what the world looks like in 3 years. And if everybody's just leaving all of their Bitcoin on exchanges and consolidating them there and not taking control of it, I think you have to ask the question, like, what are we potentially giving up? I'm finished. Yeah. We we also should not give up the ground. We should not give up ground on the statement that buying IBIT is the same thing as buying Bitcoin and holding Bitcoin. They are not the same thing. So like I agree with much of what Joe's saying there. At the same time, like, it is very important to make these distinctions in people's mind. Even if they choose to use IBIT, they need to understand that they're not holding Bitcoin. You are holding shares in a fund. Shares in a fund, by the way, that you don't have a easy way, at least right now, to get access to the Bitcoin. Like, you don't have that option unless maybe you're an authorized participant, you know, or maybe it opens up to people with like $50 million worth of Bitcoin and above. These are not the same things. This is not the same asset. So we should make sure that that distinction is clear and help people understand that there are real trade-offs to each one of those options that they have. And just obviously we have to do a better job of helping people understand the core responsibilities that they're taking on when they hold their own keys.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of expand on what Trey was saying, and maybe Terrence, you could. I don't want to step into territory I don't know what I'm talking about, so correct me if I'm wrong. But I think the other important thing that needs to be understood by people is that the Bitcoin that you're self-custodying with your seed phrase, the ETFs and the institutions and the custody providers and the exchanges are custodying it the same way. They have Bitcoin addresses that are secured by 12 or 24 words. Now, maybe they have multi-sig, maybe they have a more complicated setup, but this is important. the fundamental way they secure it is the fundamental way that you secure it when you have a 24-word seed phrase with some distinctions between multi-sig or not. So I think it's not some different setup. It's the same thing, and they can also lose it too, right? They could also get hacked too, and there's a risk factor there. So I think that's an important thing to kind of parse up. Well, yeah, and maybe maybe you want to offload that responsibility to them, which is completely okay, right? There's no problem with that. But I think understanding that's really the same process at the end of the day is very important. And I don't think it's, yeah.
Hey, I just want to, I want to point out there's risk in self custody, but there's also risk in securities. People lost a lot of money. Enron, Lehman Brothers, they lost. And from what I read, if you invest in IBIT, even with their insurance that they have, if you try to get something back, it only pays back like pennies on the dollar, 1 to 5 cents on the dollar. So no matter how you look at it, it's risk. Any way you go, you just got to choose your risk. That's my opinion on this.
It's true, baby. I'm going places. Hey, Terrence. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I took a shower. Yeah, no, it was awesome. Yeah, man, I'd love to. Let's do that. Oh, man, so great. Totally agree. Well, I had it, I could listen in while I was showering, actually. I was multitasking. I was getting ready to loading up the e-bikes, gonna go do some biking in the city. So fun stuff. No, really great conversation. I think there was a lot of really amazing things said. With that, let's take it around the horn. I don't know if Torture has had a chance to come up, but we're gonna close her down. So would you like to say something before we shut this space down,
I mean, I think,
sir?
yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think most of what needed to be said, I think was said. It's just, when Joe was talking and saying how the community was really getting on people to do cold storage, or you're a moron. There's reasons for that, right? You know, and there was a point there about the hardware wallets not generating enough RNG, with Coldcard, and everybody missed it. Like, I'm technical. I missed it. Like, I had no idea, right? All their competitors missed it. How many people in the Bitcoin space missed it, and people that are so much smarter than me. I wouldn't, like, I'd be like Coco the gorilla at best to, like, some of these, people that do, like, actual cryptography work, right? And a lot of them missed it, right? So that doesn't mean that having Bitcoin stored in cold storage is a bad thing. You have to manage your portfolio and your investments and your savings and your funds however you deem is worth it to you. But you also need to know about the caveats to putting it into an ETF or whatever. It's not all upside on one side and all downside on the other. I think there were some good points made about when you manage it yourself, you are taking on that risk. You're basically saying, I want to take on this responsibility because I want it to be on me. And so if something happens, like, and think I had cold cards at risk, right? As soon as I saw the news break, I had my stuff patched, moved, whatever, within hours, right? I mean, I was on top of it, right? I dropped everything else. But some other people, maybe they had other things going on, they couldn't do that, right? Or they weren't technical enough to do it, or somebody helped them and they didn't know how to do it. I think that's always going to be a risk. I mean, I think with a hardware wallet in general, there's a certain level of trust that you are trusting that entropy. Even if you roll the dice, you're trusting the entropy because it might not be taking the dice rolls into account. You're
Weighted
trusting
dice.
execution behind the scenes, or
He
yeah.
torched
So
Humble. She was like burned right on out of here. No, absolutely. Yep. Spewing fire.
So
You like all
sorry,
the
yeah, guys. I'm
innuendos
not
there?
not on the
You're
same
welcome.
rant as everybody else, but I just think that there's pros and cons to both sides. Manage at your own risk, and yeah, just know the benefits and the drawbacks to either side. Because right now everybody can spit fire at Bitcoiners that were hardcore
Torch
that
him.
said, you have to have on a yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's getting closer. I think it may be coming in for a crash landing. Anyway, yeah. Are you finished with your closing comments, Torture? Sorry. We're just
Yes,
poking a little
I
fun
think
at
so.
you
Yeah,
and trying to
I
rug you at the
just I
same
just
time.
know that if
Taxiing back
yeah,
in, letting the passengers off.
if IBIT gets rugged eventually or something, it's hindsight's going to be 2020 for the people that said to be on hardware wallets too. So it's just it's a sign of the times, I
Good
guess.
stuff. Kudos to you, Torture, and also kudos to you.
Yeah, no, I said my piece. The only other thing I've been thinking about is there's just, in these spaces with these Bitcoiners and stuff, there's a lot of binary extreme thinking. We've been hearing for fucking years, like, oh, never use an ETF, or if you're not doing any, now it's fucking, if you're not doing an ETF, you're a fucking moron or whatever. I think part of the reason why people get into these extreme opinions is because we're on an app that gives you that prioritizes extreme views for attention ultimately. So I would just say, do your own research. If people are being real extreme, take that as kind of a red flag. Do your own research, and maybe it's not all black and white thinking on this stuff, and find your conviction in what you believe.
Well
So
said.
thanks, guys.
Yeah, a lot of ego stroking
Actually,
going on there.
I actually had one question for you, Terrence. I don't know how quickly you're trying to wrap
Does
this up.
Torch not know how this goes, Terrence? I can't work this way. Gosh, just took the blowtorch with him. Get ready for the next flight.
Sorry, guys. I just I know that a lot of people have IRAs with on-chain capital, like 2 of 3 multi-sig, and that's a really interesting thing because if they use cold cards, I don't know, it could break your IRA agreement if you use your 2 3 multi-sig to move it, and so I think
Just
there
reach
might
out
be
to Trey
tax
down
implications.
there. Raise your hand, Trey. Reach out to that guy.
But in order to move
You
it,
only
do
got
you
one
need to
question.
be
That's number 2.
with with on chain?
Yeah, we're in the parking lot trying to catch an Uber. Yeah.
All right, I missed it.
Pierce the Ira is a great band, though. Oh, great. Trey's up here. I'm sure he's going to want to respond directly.
Hey,
Put your tray up. The tray is in the
Trey
upright
is up.
position
Trey is
and
up.
locked. Go ahead.
Yeah, very quickly on the IRA thing. As long as you don't move the Bitcoin out of the Unchained IRA account, if you're doing a key replacement or you're just moving it from a vault within the IRA to another vault within the IRA, you're good. We typically like to get a heads up on that just because there's a little bit of, paperwork or whatever on the back end just to make sure everything's clean, but you're all good.
Context. Trey has worked for Unchained for like 5 years for anybody that just joined
Yeah.
late. Yeah, and he was in the bottom 3% of his class. You got a 2.1
we're doing great.
GPA. Short bus.
Real quick closing comments. Bitcoin is anti-fragile, and we've been through a lot of different adversity over the years. And every single time we come out stronger.
Man. Kelly Clarkson said it best.
No
what
different.
Doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, that's why I don't.
It was our looks.
So just keep that in mind. We will get through this. Sucks for all the people who lost Bitcoin, but just the macro view here.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is good.
I agree, man. Bitcoin bull.
Yeah, this is a little setback for cold storage, but I believe in cold storage, and I think, like you guys said, this is only going to make everybody, hold their coins better and stronger. So I think it's just a temporary. Everybody, feels. Even me, I had an MK5, felt a little exposed, and it wasn't a cool feeling. But I think it's just going to strengthen all of us personally.
Yeah, opportunity. Glass half full. I like it. Tommy Muffin, you around? He's trying to run a town. Weekend at Tommy's. Maybe I'll say a couple words and then kick it over to you, Terrence. And then you say a few things after I do. No, I really, I think one of the key takeaways, which was echoed by many of the speakers, was perhaps it's best if we just throw our ideas out there, not as like, hey, you need to conform to these things, but rather like, hey, here's a bunch of things that I have discovered, and just set it out there and let people decide for themselves. Because like I mentioned earlier, we are all on separate journeys. We're on separate walks. Like if I was 20 years old, I would definitely be doing things differently than I am right now. And I think that probably could even go right through to the Bitcoin world. Like I definitely would just be, hard stacking coin and just preparing for my future. But I'm kind of at the point of the road where you actually, this is when you dip into your 401k when you've hit my age, unfortunately. I wish I could do it all over. But, and I also jumped into Bitcoin for different reasons. It's like, I forgot who it was that said, maybe it was Hath who was talking about the analogy of the shrimp from Forrest Gump, like shrimp kebab, shrimp stew, shrimp scampi, all that. That's kind of true. Yeah, Bubba. Oh, my bad. Yeah, Bubba. But it is true because I got in for NGU. Like I wanted to get, fiat rich. And I think people are in here for sovereignty. People are in here to take down the banks. People are in here for their kids, etc. And depending on what your goal or why you're here, like that's a completely different mindset and how you look at things. And so somebody who's measuring their value in US dollars is going to look at it much differently than somebody who's in here with their middle finger up, realizing they're just getting, raped by the current fiscal system. So I think we have to keep that in mind and not judge people, but instead, embrace them. Like these companies that are fiat and yet they throw Bitcoin in the mix to try to, generate business. I don't think we should try to sink them. I think that would actually be counterproductive to the goal and to the mission, no matter which one you're on, if it's just NGU or if you're trying to change the world for the better long term. And this is a sovereignty tool, something where we can change the fiat system and make it blow it up, actually. So whatever it is, I really like that the echoes in here of like, hey guys, maybe we shouldn't be such a crazy cult and just work with people from where they're at and not judge and not, flip them the bird and say, shut the F up and have fun staying poor. Like those messages aren't what we need to be saying. So with that, Terrence, I shall kick it over to you. Why don't you host for a couple of days and I'll just, I'll co-host from the road. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So hello and welcome to this Bitcoin Magazine interview. I am Vlad and I'm sitting next to NVK. So how do you do, mister? And how's it going with the Coldcard wallet and the Open Dime and all the great products that you're releasing nowadays?
No, I definitely love money.
Hey, hey, hey. What's up? Bitcoin.